Hello and welcome to another episode of the GB Transfer Show. This is the episode number 5. And for that one, we've got one of the most recognizable voices of European football, one of the best connected journalists I know in the business. So somebody that's going to open our eyes about many of the things that are happening in this transfer window, and that's James Horncastle. But first, Arya, of course, is going to take us and monitor and just control the amount of time that we're talking and the stuff that we're talking about. So, Arya, over to you.
Thank you so much, Guillem. Yes, it's episode 5 of GB Transfer Show in association with Football Index, of course. And let's start off with Higuain. What's happening with Higuain? He's just come into London. He's come to Chelsea. What sort of an impact will he have with his former manager at Napoli, Maurizio Sarri?
Well, look, I think Chelsea expect him to have an instant impact because of this father-son relationship that he has with Maurizio Sarri. They only worked together for 1 year in Naples, but it was a historic year in which he scored 36 league goals. Nobody scores 30 goals, let alone 36 in Serie A, not these days anyway. He broke a record which has stood since 1950, and I think it's exactly what Chelsea need right now, because it's that lack of goals up front that is maybe holding Sarri's mob back at this moment in time. Higuain has not had the best 6 months. He moved to AC Milan. He was very much on the rebound. He described his treatment at Juve like being kicked out, as the old lady dumped him for Cristiano Ronaldo. And after starting the season quite well with Milan, they played Juventus, and it clearly meant too much to him. He missed a penalty, he got sent off, he threw an incredible tantrum, and has never really been the same since. And I think, judging from Milan's comments yesterday at the unveiling of his replacement, Christoph Piontek, they felt he didn't want to be around anymore and that he wanted to be with Maurizio Sarri. So I think to some extent that brings a little bit of pressure on Higuain, that this is the move you wanted, so go out and prove yourself that you can be the guy Sarri wants you to be for Chelsea.
What's interesting, of course, is that has got a domino effect, as we've been saying all along this month, and is, of course, that Morata expects to go to Atletico Madrid. He's got all the personal terms agreed. His family already have flown to Madrid. But it's interesting the take from the Spanish media last night, which was that Chelsea is now not so sure about selling Morata, or is actually blocking the move, or something is happening. The only thing that's happening really is that Atletico Madrid not only have to get rid of Gerson Martins, who is going on loan to Monaco, but somebody else. So it could be perhaps Johnny, who is a Wolverhampton, maybe sell him, or Kalinic. They've been putting him in the transfer market, but nobody seems to be coming with offers. It's all about financial fair play. Atletico Madrid are completely confident that they can sort that out. But meanwhile, Simeone wanted Morata. Simeone, who rang Morata to convince him to come to Atletico Madrid, is basically just waiting for Morata to arrive. Expected him to be here right now. It isn't. So he's going to have to wait. Atletico Madrid are working hard to get rid of one more player to be able to adhere to financial fair play.
That brings us nicely into our first topic. One person who is leaving Atletico Madrid is Diego Godin, the defender, 32 years old, from Uruguay. Apparently, he's passed his medical at Inter, and he will be available for a free transfer in the summer. James, what's the latest on that?
Well, this has been an open secret now for a few weeks, that he had agreed personal terms to move to Inter. To give you a little bit more background on that, this is a situation Italian clubs were monitoring very closely already last summer, because they knew that Godin was entering the final year of his contract. Juventus were seriously thinking about signing Godin in the last session of the transfer market. And then they got a call from an agent who said, you know, that guy Leonardo Bonucci, who used to play at the back for you, he wants to come back. And that all of a sudden changed things for Juventus. Another thing, I think that's had a real impact on Godin coming to Italy, is the fact that the guy who wanted him at Juventus, Giuseppe Marotta, is now the chief executive at Inter Milan. He left the club in a reshuffle in the autumn, and he's using a lot of the kind of techniques at Inter that he used to rebuild Juventus over the last 7 or 8 years, and that is these very prestigious, if you like, free transfers. Remember, it started off at Juventus with Andrea Pirlo. Then you had the likes of Fernando Llorente, Patrice Evra, Sami Khedira, but also some really good young players like Pogba, Kingsley Coman, and now more recently Chan and Ramsey. Godin kind of fits that profile. What I'm really fascinated by is Inter already have two very young, very good centre-backs in Milan Skriniar and Stefan de Vrij. I think Skriniar at the moment is in contract negotiations to extend his current deal. Godin has played 21 games this season, starts for Atleti. I would expect, even though he turns 33 next month, he would want to be or expect to be starting. You look at the wages Inter have offered, of €4.5 million a year, with bonuses it goes up to 6. That would make him the highest earner at the club, pending Icardi's contract negotiations. So I just wonder, what does this signal? Does this signal that one of Skriniar or de Vrij will be leaving in the summer? I think Inter fans would hope not. I think it would be quite interesting to get Guillem's take on Godin's season so far, because the Italians go, he's a fantastic defender, he's one of the best of all time, he's up there with Chiellini, but maybe this season, not so much.
Good point, James. In fact, do you think that Simeone wanted him so badly he would leave? And it seems like he's going to pass his medical in the next few days, so it's all geared for him to leave. And the reason is because Atletico Madrid, yes, they are still a lot of the time defending in their own box as a unit, compact, but they play better football than ever, in a way, when they have the ball. With Rodri in midfield, with Koke, with Saul. These are guys that like to keep the ball. And they have to push the defensive line high up the pitch. But when that has happened, Godin has failed a few times, has made mistakes. He's obviously not fast tracking back. There's a lot of things that suggest that Simeone doesn't see him with the same eyes that he did 2 or 3 years ago. Plus Atletico Madrid, because he's over 30 now, they only will pay, will offer 1 year contract. That's the deal that they've got, which means that with Inter offering 2 and more money, it's very attractive proposition for Godin. They've got Savic, perhaps the worst of the 4 centre-backs that they've got, but they've got Jimenez, who's growing in his stature. Lucas Hernandez, let's see if he stays or if he goes to Bayern Munich. But generally, they seem to be okay with centre-backs. Are they not that desperate to see Godin go right now? Well, by the way, this is just for next season, so all the agreement will be for him to leave at the end of the season.
Right, let's get on to point number 2, which is Denis Suarez to Arsenal. We've been speaking about this all through this month. And but then, we've asked all of you to send in your questions using the hashtag AskGM, and that's one of the most common questions. This is by Oho Olesegun. I'm so sorry if I get your name wrong. Olusegun David. That's at BlessDave10, who's asked, what's happening with Arsenal's transfers? Guillem, let's start with Denis Suarez once more. What's happening there?
Well, we've said already, Arsenal are looking for 2 loan deals, and it's not necessarily a centre-back. It could be a left-back, perhaps, and Denis Suarez maybe, or somebody of that stature, of that quality in the midfield. Not easy. So what's happened is, as we've explained, Denis Suarez has said to Barcelona, it's either Arsenal or I stay at Barcelona. So when that got to that moment, basically Arsenal are not willing right now to pay the 20-odd million euros obligation to buy that Barcelona wants to put into the loan deal. Arsenal are not that fussed about it. If it means that, then we lose Denis Suarez. It's not a problem. They just want him on loan right now. And Barcelona, hearing that Denis Suarez has said, well, okay, I'm not going, I won't go anyway, decided in the morning of the Copa game to actually, against Sevilla, to actually leave him out of the squad. And he didn't expect that at all. He feels that perhaps he won't even play against Girona at the weekend, and it's a way for Barcelona to force him out. There's 2 offers on the table, one from Betis and one from Sevilla, 20 million euros each they will pay. He's not that interested about them right now, but of course, Barcelona are pushing with the idea of reducing the wage list to keep him away from the team, because to bring the players that they want, they've got De Jong now, maybe they're trying to get De Ligt. They need to sell players. And Denis Suarez is one they want to sell. There are others like Malcolm too. So Denis Suarez right now doesn't know what to do. We're going to have to keep an eye on this one because Barcelona want him out. Right now he wants to stay, but it doesn't mean that's the end of the story.
We have De Ligt to Barca at number 5, but we're just going to push it to number 3 because it just seems relevant right now. So Let's start with De Jong. He was expected to move to PSG, but he eventually ended up at Barcelona in an incredible swoop for the Catalan side. How did that come about?
Right, De Jong and Barcelona have been talking for a long while. In the summer, Ajax basically said, forget about it, let's talk again now, in January. De Jong, meanwhile, and his agent have spoken, as De Jong has said himself, to Tuchel, certainly to go to PSG, to Pep Guardiola as well. City didn't make an offer for him, but they didn't because they never felt that he genuinely wanted to go to City. I believe that the Premier League wasn't a target anyway in his mind. It's not something that he was that excited about. But it was PSG that were in the front runners of this one. And he had to do, of course, with money, but he had to do with the fact that he felt at Barcelona perhaps he wouldn't play that often. It's something that Barcelona cannot guarantee, and nobody came to the phone and said, actually, no, you are going to play, you are going to be a key player. Nobody said that to him until very recently. So when Barcelona heard that PSG had convinced the player, and the agent told Barcelona, we're going to tell this week that where he's going, Jose Maria Bartomeu, the president of Barcelona, said to his agent, can we meet? So they met, they went to Amsterdam, not just him, but also Eric Abidal, Ramon Planas, and Pep Segura, who are the decision makers of Barcelona, with the president of Barcelona. And they told him a few things. One, 2 regulars of Barcelona are going to go, which means you're going to have much more playing time than you would imagine. You're going to be key to us. We want you to retire Barcelona. The relationship between Ajax and Dutch players and Barcelona is very obvious there. And we need you. We need the kind of player that you are. And by the way, they put the wages up as well. Even more than certainly what City were willing to offer, and at PSG as well. The agreement with Ajax was clear, 25 million euros plus 11 on bonuses, depending on what happens with titles, etc. And they said something else. They said to him, we're going to try to get De Ligt. So, the problem is, those are words. Barcelona they've been moaning about top stars wanting more and more wages. They don't have this kind of money, as if to get both De Jong and De Ligt. So let's see how far they go with the promise that they will at least try to get De Ligt, who, according to Koeman, will become, in the next couple of years, the best centre-back in the world.
It's quite interesting that both of these players, I think, had their choice of all the elite clubs. I think, as Guillem alluded to there with Frenkie de Jong, whenever an entourage as big as that comes to see you, the president, Eric Abidal, the sporting director, I think it really shows a signal of intent. And these charm offensives have now been going on. I mean, they're not a recent thing. For both of these players, they've been going on really since last summer. And I know with De Ligt, for example, Juventus have really pushed on that. There was reports of even a visit to Turin during the summer. And his agent is a little bit more famous than De Jong's in that it is a certain Mino Raiola. And I think what's going to be fascinating there is Juve never get involved in auctions. They always like to they want to get the word of the player first, sort it out, and that's it. They don't want to get into a bidding war with these other clubs like Barcelona, Man City, PSG, who've just got more money than them. So I think following what happens with De Ligt is going to be one of the stories to follow between now and the summer.
In fact, let me add a couple of things to these 2 stories. One is that the day after when PSG realized that Barcelona had gone and talked to his agent and almost convinced him, PSG made an unannounced appointment. They presented themselves into the offices almost like, it was like, do you have to talk to us? Don't decide on Barcelona yet. But it was too late at that point, of course, because of that charming offensive that James is talking about. And secondly, Mino Raiola, this is key about De Ligt. Mino Raiola wants De Ligt to go anywhere else but Barcelona. So even though De Ligt wants to play with De Jong, and it will make a lot of sense for somebody like him to be the new Piqué, if you like, of Barcelona, there is a personal situation there with the agent, which we will see how that ends up.
Yeah, and there's a fascinating sort of development, again, just to go on Juventus' end here. On Friday, it seemed that Mehdi Benatia, who's sort of the backup centre-back for Leonardo Bonucci and Giorgio Chiellini, certainly the one with most experience, played at Bayern Munich under Pep Guardiola, has an offer to go and play in Qatar under Rui Faria, Jose Mourinho's assistant. And they brought in, as a sort of stopgap, Martin Cáceres, who's played on 2 occasions with Juventus, but I don't think he's anywhere near a kind of long-term option for that. They have got another young centre-back who often arouses a lot of interest, Daniele Rugani, but you maybe look at that slot for the future and think, that is a De Ligt fillable slot. But as I said, Juventus face an awful lot of competition for De Ligt and will not be getting involved in any kind of crazy bidding war.
Of course, 19-year-old De Ligt has a steady head in that regard. He has come out with some quotes this week. He said any player would like to play for FC Barcelona at some point in their career, but then immediately distanced himself and said that, well, I am focusing on the rest of this season at Ajax and possibly more seasons. That's De Ligt. Let's move on to the next topic, that is Cristiano. Well, it's Juventus transfers, but let's start with Cristiano Ronaldo, the big transfer that Juventus brought in for 100 million euros. He turns 34 early next month, the 5th of February, of course. And he's had quite a season so far. 20 matches in the Serie A. He's got 14 goals, 5 assists, top of the goal scoring charts along with Quagliarella. What sort of an impact has he had at Juventus?
Well, on the pitch, I would say that once he scored his first goals, which took him more than 5 hours, and that was a story in itself. I went to his first 4 games and he didn't get off the mark in any of them. You know what the media's like, it can be quite fickle, Cristiano flop and all that sort of thing. But from then onwards, he's been a very decisive player for them. Went into the Christmas break, top of the scoring charts, scored some beautiful goals along the way. Probably the best was, in the league at least, was against Empoli. The best of the season so far from his point of view, against Manchester United at the Juventus Stadium, although that game ended in a quite shock defeat in the final 5 minutes. And also, Ronaldo, there's this debate about how dependent Juventus are on him, because in the first game of the Champions League group stages, he got sent off after 20 minutes for appearing to pull the hair of Jason Murillo. He was very emotional when he was shown the red card, seemed to be in tears when he went down the tunnel. And Juventus then really made a statement. They beat Valencia with 10 men, despite playing, 60, 70 minutes like that, and wiped the floor of a quite good Valencia team who maybe not as good as they were last year. But then towards the end of the first half of the season, Juventus went away to play against Atalanta. They found themselves down to 10 men again. They were 2-1 down. He gets the equaliser and he almost sets up a winner coming off the bench. And that was the only time he'd been on the bench for them in the league that season. And it really gave you a sense that Ronaldo has really now settled, adapted. I think he's been involved in 48% of their goals because, while he's not scoring a goal a game, if you add up his assists, it is 19 in 20 games. So I think in that respect, positive. Off the field, in terms of the economic impact that Cristiano's made. In December, Juventus announced they'd renegotiated their kit deal with Adidas, which, when it kicks in from next season, is worth 408 million euro to them between then and 2027. Really takes the kind of value of their kit deal on a year basis up with the top clubs in Europe. But of course, we can't leave aside the other serious allegations that Cristiano Ronaldo is facing and what the future holds for him. We're awaiting developments in that investigation, and that has the potential to destabilise this move. Obviously, Cristiano denies any wrongdoing at this moment in time, and the club has stood by him throughout that, attracting a lot of criticism for the wording of the statement that they put out in his defence. But when he touched down in Spain this week for the tax hearing, it doesn't seem to faze him. He seems to be able to, at least in the public face he presents, be, I think the words he uses, happy, serene, and he keeps delivering on the pitch. I think from Juventus' point of view, going back to the football side of things, they want to see him deliver in the Champions League. That is ultimately why they signed him. I think he only scored 1 goal in the group stages, and while he was suspended for 1 match and sent off after 20 minutes in another, obviously I think they want to see him really deliver in the knockout stages.
Very thorough analysis from James, of course, as suspected. But I want to add one thing on regards of how he went to Juventus, because it hasn't been made public, this story, and it kind of explains a little bit what Lopetegui had to go through. Julian Lopetegui didn't know that Cristiano Ronaldo was leaving. And in fact, there was no real push from Real Madrid for him to get away, in a way, but in another way there was. So Cristiano was saying to Real Madrid, if you really want me to stay, show it to me, give me another contract. And Florentino Perez said, absolutely, new contract, not a problem. But you wouldn't mind to reduce your buyout clause to a more manageable buyout clause. How do you think Cristiano reacted to that? He was like, they don't want me. Go and get me a team, he said to Jorge Mendes. We're entering the summer, and I know it's been sometimes described as this Juventus love affair started like much earlier than June, July, but that's exactly what happened. I know Milan made the calculations, and they thought, no. Juventus made their own calculations, and Florentino Perez said, just go and do those calculations, because if you bring me 100 million on the table, you'll be able to take him. The rest is history and has been explained many times in detail by James. But I just thought I wanted to say that because Lopetegui started the season with Cristiano Ronaldo thinking he was going to stay and didn't have Cristiano Ronaldo soon after. So the odds were against him from the beginning, poor Lopetegui.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting hearing Juventus' sporting director Fabio Paratici talk about how this all came about as well, because again, there was this sense, as Guillem has alluded to, that when he scored that bicycle kick against Juventus and got the applause, that was the moment in Cristiano's mind when he made up his mind to go to Juventus. Paratici says that it was actually in, June, July, when Juventus were talking about signing Cancelo, the fullback who'd been on loan from Valencia, Inter, done very well. And Jorge Mendes said, Cristiano wants to come, and Paratici was... He didn't believe him. He was incredulous. And it was only Mendes saying, no, believe me, Cristiano wants to come. He wants to do this. And that's when Juventus basically rented a villa in Lago Maggiore, spent a couple of days in there going through how they can make it possible, and decided to do it. So it was a very, I wouldn't say heat of a moment, ad hoc thing, but it's something that they were made aware of. They'd maybe been aware of for 6 months, but we're only aware that was truly possible that late in the day.
From €100 million transfer, of course, Juve are linked with Aaron Ramsey coming up in the summer. That's going to be on a free. Is that happened, or is that quite on the verge of happening? What's happening there?
That is a done deal. Everything has been sorted out there. There was talk of a medical. I think it was now a couple of weeks ago. In London, I've been told that's rubbish, but everything is sorted for Ramsey to join Juventus in the summer. They didn't really need to make much of a pitch to him. He's seen how the club has really put itself back on the top, not only in Italy but in Europe over particularly the last 4 years when they've reached 2 Champions League finals. And while Khedira has signed a new contract at Juventus, he's very much seen as someone who will succeed him and be a kind of box-to-box player who chips in with anything between 7 and 12 goals a season for them. So I think he'll do quite well out of it in terms of, obviously, like Chan, he'll be a free agent. I think what you'd usually see as being a transfer fee, that'll be bumped into some of his wages, bumped into his agent's commission. Chan's agent, for example, I think got 16 million from the free transfer that happened 6 months ago. So again, this is part of this long tradition that Juventus have established, particularly in the last 7-8 years, of being ahead of the curve when it comes to players' contracts being up. And in some respects, either regenerating players or players a lot of people think are at the end of their career extending those careers. And they've been very successful at doing that.
Right, and let's go back to Cristiano's old club, that is Real Madrid. They have been linked to everyone every now and then, but most repeatedly of late, it has been Eden Hazard. Is Hazard on his way to Real Madrid?
If Eden Hazard was absolutely focused at Chelsea, as you are, because you think you're going to be there for 10 years, I think we'll see a more consistent form from Hazard, a more, I would say, perhaps respect towards the manager in terms of what he does on the pitch. Hazard is his own man, Sarri wants him to do a certain job. So they both not finding common ground right now. But Hazard, if he thinks he's going to be there for 10 years, will listen and perhaps apply that to his football. But I think he's obviously waiting for Real Madrid to start negotiations with Chelsea and move to Real Madrid. Real Madrid needs to recycle. They actually are putting a lot of effort into the developing of some of the players, some of the young players, Vinicius, Rodrigo, who will come in the summer. But that is just something that has to go side by side with superstars. They have been identified. Hazard is one of them. He's going to be a target. Chelsea are trying to give him a third offer on the table, see if they can convince him. But otherwise, they said, he's going to cost between 100 and 120 million pounds. So Real Madrid knows the figures, and at some point they will start negotiating for him and see what happens with that. The other one they want, of course, is Christian Eriksen. Christian Eriksen, who is not renewing his contract with Spurs, is somebody that Real Madrid identify as a potential future Modric. And yes, they will go to Spurs and see if they can convince Daniel Levy. So in both cases, is Real Madrid trying to convince Chelsea and Spurs before you can say that the transfer is going to happen. But I can tell you 100% that they both going to be two of the biggest targets this summer. But the reason why they're not going full guns into this is because they're still hoping that they can convince either Mbappe or Neymar to go to Real Madrid. That is way away from actually being the beginning of anything. They've not even been able to talk to PSG. They won't be able to talk to PSG. Right now, they're not negotiating anything at all. So they feel that they have to go for either a superstar like Mbappe and Neymar or go for Hazard and Eriksen to complement what they have right now.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk about this in the summer episodes of the GB Transfer Show. We have come to the end of our topics, but there's just one little thing that I read right now, actually, is the BBC has reported that Maxi Gomez, Uruguay's 22-year-old striker who plays for Celta Vigo, may be bound for West Ham. They apparently are ready to pay the £43.3 million release fee. Any news on that?
All I know right at this point is that West Ham thought that Arnautovic was going to Shanghai, to the Chinese league, and an offer was put on the table of about £35 million, which West Ham were kind of willing to accept. But that's gone completely quiet in the last few days. So neither Arnautovic or West Ham know if that offer will come back. In case it does, what West Ham have done is ask Celta about Maxi Gomez, and Celta said he's got a 50 million euros buyout clause. You pay that, there's nothing we can do, but we're not negotiating. Celta are fighting for their lives, really, not to get relegated. So right now, that's where we are. I don't think it's been an offer from West Ham yet. Anyway, it seems to me a lot of money for Maxi Gomez, 50 million euros. So we'll see how desperate West Ham are. But if Arnautovic stays, they may not need to have another striker anyway. By the way, Valencia have approached West Ham in regards of Chicharito. They put an 8 million euro offer for him, which has been rejected by West Ham. They want to see what happens with the strikers, and they don't want to release Chicharito just yet.
Thank you so much. That was episode 5 of GB Transfer Show in association with Football Index. Thank you, James, for joining us, and thank you, Guillem, for letting me moderate this.